Spaniel, and I tell you, if we are to tame darkness, we must first face...
Back in October, we did an entire month of vampire movies, starting with the 1922 F.W. Murnau silent expressionist film, Nosferatu, a symphony of horror, an unlicensed German adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula that was almost destroyed in a famous lawsuit from Bram Stoker's estate. You could think of tonight's episode as a coda to that month of movies, because we're talking about Robert Eggers' new Gothic horror remake, Nosferatu.
It is a black omen to journey in poor health. You will remain and well rest yourself.
I must object, my lord.
You will obey.
Starring Nicholas Hoult, Lily Rose Depp, Willem Dafoe, Emma Corrin, Ralph Ineson, and of course, Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok. Robert Eggers has now created a solid niche for himself. Born in New York City to a single mother, they soon moved to Wyoming, where she met and married Walter Eggers, an English literature professor, who soon got a job teaching at the University of New Hampshire, and they all moved to Lee, New Hampshire, where Robert spent the rest of his childhood. Living in New England, around all the history and culture that evolved from the Puritans, inspired Eggers' brand of folk horror that usually combines mythology and folk tales with modern aesthetics and horror movie themes. Eggers would often hang out at the Plymouth Plantation and became really interested in witches with Salem nearby. Eggers' first films were shorts, including a short version of Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart and Hansel and Gretel, starring his mom as the witch. Starting with his directorial debut, The Witch, in 2015, which takes place in the 1630s and shows a Puritan family banished over a religious dispute, who get harassed and picked off by evil forces who surround their small, secluded farm.
Black Philip, Burger's out his head! Black Philip, tonight Queen is wed! Just to the face, past run!
Jonas, Mercy, come hither!
This film introduced a teenage Anya Taylor-Joy at her feature film debut, although Eggers had to film in Ontario rather than New England because he needed the tax incentive. He got the production team to consult with agricultural experts and museums in America and England to make the film as historically accurate as possible, as well as a carpenter and a thatcher with 1600s building experience. Next, after several failed pitches, Robert Eggers made a more conventional movie by his own reckoning. He adapted Edgar Allan Poe's unfinished story, The Lighthouse, with his younger brother, Max. The last story most likely that Poe ever wrote before his mysterious death in 1849. A story of isolation and alienation turned into a film where Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson are trapped together working at a New England lighthouse in the 1890s. The elements of the Poe story that Max had on the page were removed, and it becomes a deeply psychologically unsettling character study of isolation turning into madness.
I seen you sparring with a gull. Best leave him be. Bad luck to kill a seabird.
More tall tales.
Bad luck to kill a seabird!
Eggers' next film was by far his most sweeping, at least before Nosferatu. He wanted to work with Alexander Skarsgård, who wanted to do a film about Vikings. And working with the Icelandic poet and Björk collaborator, Sjöun, they adapted the ancient Scandinavian story of Amaleth. Originally written down by Saxo Grammaticus, the medieval Danish historian, it was discovered by a young Shakespeare who turned it into Hamlet. However, capitalizing on Alexander Skarsgård and his physique, Eggers turned it into a historical action movie and was inspired by Conan the Barbarian.
Why would he stow away to such a hellish place? This ground harbors evil.
My fate has brought me here to find what was stolen from me.
This was The Northman, which Eggers considered his real learning experience. Going from lower budget, small scale productions to the big sweeping epic gave Eggers the confidence to go even bigger with Nosferatu.
I saw a picture of Max Schreck in a book about vampires in the school library, and then my mom helped me track down a VHS, and I was just utterly mesmerized, like initially by Max Schreck's performance and this iconic makeup design that he designed himself. He just seemed like a vampire, and it felt real.
He had wanted to remake Nosferatu ever since The Witch, but felt like doing it as a second film without much experience would have been disrespectful. This gave him 8 years to figure out how exactly to adapt it, how to add to it, and how to make the unofficial Dracula adaptation work for the 21st century.
Something about the Murnau adaptation is just a simple fairy tale, and I actually think that simple fairy tale that is at the core of the Stoker novel is the thing that has made it like so adaptable and so versatile and kept people so inspired over the past century. And something that I really loved about the Murnau film is that, you know, it ends with the female protagonist being the heroine, and I thought that it would be like potentially more exciting if you know the whole film is told through her eyes, because it had the potential to be more like emotionally and psychologically complex than an adventure story about a real estate agent.
Inspired by other films like the Andrzej Zawadzki films The Devil, The Third Part of the Night, and Possession, as well as the Herzog remake of Nosferatu, although smartly, Eggers returns the vampire to being Count Orlok, whereas Herzog tried to name him Dracula. Rather than making Orlok, who is played by a prosthesis-covered Bill Skarsgård, who is practically unrecognizable, look like Count Orlok in the original Nosferatu, the look is far more inspired by the real Vlad the Impaler, mustache and all. And Orlok speaks the extinct but reconstructed Dacian language, which would have been spoken in ancient Romania. The film was shot in Transylvania and in Prague. Orlok's castle is the Corvin Castle, one of the largest in Europe, where Vlad the Impaler is said to have been held prisoner. The city scenes, as the city of Visborg, where Nosferatu takes place, is fictional, are in Prague, including at the Barrandov Studios, for all the interior shots. They also filmed Ravenous, as well as Amadeus, Casino Royale, Mission Impossible, and parts of Jojo Rabbit and Snowpiercer, among many other films. Robert Eggers chooses to lean into the German expressionist elements of the original 1922 Nosferatu, covering the screen with shadow. Eggers' Nosferatu is even less horror in the classic movie sense, although there are some crazy jump scares, that it is a gothic romance. We are haunted as an audience and feel a dread and fear through the screen. The aesthetic power of the film reinforces that, as does the fact that Eggers chose some actors and actresses with genuinely expressive facial features like the old silent film stars used to have. Lily Rose Depp, who plays Ellen Hunter and is Johnny Depp's daughter, and has even more expression in her face than he was able to convey in Edward Scissorhands.
Come to me. Come to me. A guardian angel. A spirit of comfort.
Doing a performance that takes inspiration from Isabelle Adjani in Possession in a legitimately crazy way. Adjani was also the Ellen Hunter character Lucy in Herzog's Nosferatu. All these actors have large eyes, melancholy faces, and the rare ability to wordlessly project multi-layered emotions that I feel like we lost after silent films. And the surrealistic power of dreams caught with these characters in between being awake and asleep, often not even knowing which. Orlok haunts the dreams of his victims. Willem Dafoe plays Professor Albin Eberhard von Franz, the Van Helsing character. It's been brought up a lot, but he was also in the film Shadow of the Vampire, which satirizes the making of the original Nosferatu. In Shadow of the Vampire, he played Max Schreck, who played the original Orlok, but in the movie, he's also an actual vampire. In a way, this is his own version of Full Circle. Eggers also used 5,000 live, trained rat actors and real wolves who chased Nicholas Hoult's carriage. The film is truly haunting, eerie, mysterious, and aesthetically unsettling, building on the 1922 and 1977 versions of Nosferatu, using the technology and skills we've developed in filmmaking to build on it. It's not just haunting, but sexually charged, getting to the heart of what has been so terrifying about the vampire, preying on us at our most vulnerable, whether that's as we sleep or in our most intimate moments.
Standing before me, all in black, was death. But I was so happy. So very happy.
Before I introduce the panel, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Then hit that bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. Super chats are now open. If you have any pressing questions, send us a super chat, which helps me maintain the expenses for the show, which I am obligated by the rules of the Geneva Convention to stop everything and ask the panel. Another way to help us out is to become a patron and give us money every month. In exchange, you get access to all of our after parties, bonus content, and we'll tell you even more movies we watched recently. Patreon.com/movie night extra. We have a movie night extravaganza Discord. There's an invite link in the episode description, and we have a Letterboxd HQ account. So those are 2 more places to follow along with us. Okay, let me introduce the illustrious panel. Conan Neutron is the host of Protonic Reversal, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, and the frontman for the band Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends. You can check out his music and hopefully buy some at neutronfriends.bandcamp.com. Kristina Oakes is a co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza and a Twitch streamer. You can find her streaming at twitch.tv/cosmopolitics. All of her social media accounts are also at Cosmopolitics. She's on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, and even occasionally on Letterboxd. Katie Baldassaro is the co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, a director, writer, and actress who wrote and co-directed Girl in the Basement, along with appearing in horror movies like The Purge Election Year and The Devil's Nightmare. You can catch her voice acting in the podcast series, The Starwell Foundation, and she's the host of What If I Don't Like It, and on TikTok at Movie Runtime. I, of course, am your host, and the famed Swiss metaphysician who has been kicked out of respectable academe for flirting with the occult, Forrest Albin Eberhard von Flacco. We are here encountering the dead plague carrier, the vampire, Nosferatu.
Indeed we are.
Yep, the vampire. You know, it's not my vamp boss, you know, it's my vampires, you know, my coworkers, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. That's good.
So
Save
it's
that for the next office
2025.
meeting.
And we are back with Movie Night Extravaganza season. I think I'm gonna make this season 8. I think I'm doing like one of those season breaks or whatever because we got up to 40 episodes last time. So it's season 8. We're here. It's the beginning of 2025, and we are talking about Nosferatu. I wish I could roll my R's like Bill Skarsgård did throughout this.
You will remain.
According to IMDb, it's season 9 technically, but whatever. We can just start over if you want.
Yeah.
Last season didn't count.
First show of the year. We're very much in the zeitgeist on this one. I like that we did a whole month of vampire movies. The intention was always to capstone it with this, as anyone who saw Kristina's Eyes promo would know. Because we started with Nosferatu. We started with the 1922 Nosferatu.
Mm-hmm.
We covered all the vampire... Well, not all the vampire movies. We covered a lot of the vampire movies. We covered them all. That's bonus episodes on the Patreon. You have to subscribe to the Patreon to hear those.
Yeah.
But, it's the most recent entry, right? Which has made a pretty big splash.
Yes, and we are very excited to cover it. I saw it on Christmas Day with a bunch of people, and I was like, oh! But then, of course, there are people who brought their children.
Yeah, that's insane.
The movie.
You can't leave your children at home on Christmas.
They got their presents. You can.
Sure you can.
Maybe this is their present. You're like, listen, I didn't have very much money, but I could take you to the movies on Christmas. Your dad cruises in, and he's like, look,
but
I don't
Sonic the 3 is in the... Take them to see Sonic 3, and then the adults can see Nosferatu. That's how we did it.
My theater was predominantly goths, and that may be the first time that's ever happened since The Crow. I'm talking about the real Crow, not that new metal thing that came out last year.
Yeah,
with Bill Skarsgård, obviously.
Yeah, been trying to forget.
Yeah.
Wait, so they were all like, were they like the classic like mall goths, like the ones you see like hanging out around like Hot Topic and like?
There were 3 apparently unrelated groups of goths, 2 of which were more mall goths and 1 more classic death rocker style.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds like a great
bunch
crowd.
of old people and parents
with their
kids.
Very respectful. Yeah. But
well, you were saying that you really think that maybe like who you saw this with affected how much you like how you vibed with the movie in theaters, right? Like if you were with like a less enthusiastic crowd or something, like it might not have hit the same way that like you would if the entire thing was kind of buzzing.
Well, I also think it's specifically because how it's reacted to. I mean, I've heard some people like laughing at it and stuff like that.
Same. I was like,
that was not happening in my screening at all. So
yeah.
Okay.
Definitely happening in mine, and I was doing it. So I'm sorry. Laughter is not something you can control. And I mean that in the best way.
Well,
yeah,
the thing is that these days when we're seeing something that makes us like uncomfortable, we can't help but laugh. it seems like, or something is like disturbing or sad. A lot of people, like I watched Bailey Sari, and she when she describes very horrific things, she's like, "I'm sorry, I'm laughing because it's just really uncomfortable and disturbing to I have no other way to express it." Yeah,
is a way that we establish to each other that it's actually okay. Like as human beings, that's anthropologically why we laugh. It's definitely a common response to horror movies. There were lines that just landed like comedic lines for me, and I laughed at them as though they were jokes.
Most of
it didn't bother me.
Funny.
Yeah, it didn't bother me that those lines are kind of funny, and I like a little comedy with my horror, and I wouldn't say my audience was like rolling. It's just that certain lines hit, and it worked.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think comedic horror is probably like one of my favorite genres, but also, there are times where something can be so serious that it like wraps around to being funny. And the thing with Gothic horror, because first of all, we're just not used to seeing Gothic horror anymore.
Yes, that's
period.
True.
Yeah, but like when something in Robert Eggers, who by the way sounds exactly like Chris Williams, like to the point that I was like, huh? Like I looked up because I thought it was Chris talking. I was like, oh, it's Robert Eggers. That's right. I forgot those dudes have like the same voice. But I think that has something to do with it. You know, a lot of it. The negative reactions, which again, it's somewhere between like a third to a half, depending on who you're looking at that day. People seem to have different expectations of what the movie was. And I mean, Eggers is like a serious filmmaker. The one thing everybody seems to agree on, it looks cool. It looks amazing.
Yes.
The look of this is astounding.
They wanted more. It's like a lot of people were expecting more gore. Like it did not have. I mean, there were jump scares, but like how horror movies they like to cheapen the frightening aspect by just putting jump scare after jump scare after jump scare. Like we're so used to what horror is today that I think that's why some people reacted the way they did, because they're like, it's supposed to be frightening, scary. I'm like, no, it's a gothic romantic horror. I'm like, it's not going to be like, oh my God, I'm gonna have nightmares. It's like you feel drawn in. And so when I was watching it, I literally was like this, like
it's not a slasher movie. Because the thing is, what we've come to think of as horror movies has changed considerably over generations. And I think that there actually were a couple jump scares as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the least of which. Yeah, never mind. I was going to say something lewd, but I think but I think that is also something that we just haven't seen. I was thinking of this a lot. Generationally, we haven't had like a gothic horror vampire movie, really. That's hit the pop because we talked about this in Bram Stoker's Dracula, right?
Yeah, but that was very horny.
Absolutely, and that's I think why a lot of people keep referencing Bram Stoker's Dracula too. Which this is like, first of all, different vampires, even though, it starts in the same place. But I think
I do love the people who are like, this is just a ripoff of the Keanu Reeves one. And you're like, exactly. All remakes of the same base story. Okay, go on.
It's sort of like, where do I even start with that question?
But be curious and let them dig the hole.
Yeah. It's like, well, there's actually a rich history that's pretty interesting, including like a dude's skull being stolen. But that's neither here nor there. No, not in the movie. In reality. Yep. But
you make a really good point about the seriousness, though. Like, it's so serious at times that it could jump the shark. It's like so serious that I love it, and then I take a step back and I'm like, it's a little funny. Like the costumes are so beautiful, but then people are like in giant trash bag armed row with giant bonnets, and you're just like, it looks like somebody has an upside down bed on their head. But you could say the same thing of Dune too, and that's brilliant as well. So like, there's
one moment that like really hit for me that I remember vividly both times because I saw it twice. Both times I laughed really hard. Like some of the townspeople, like a lot of the city people, right? Like the random ones are very funny, and I think they're playing that on purpose, right? They're playing up their whole thing.
Plague
there's one part where everyone's suffering from the plague, and it's this overly serious moment, and you have a conversation with Lily Rose Depp's character, and she's really going through it, and she's talking to like the douchey misogynist guy that keeps trying to put her in her place, and it cuts really sharply. So a woman going, that, like really close up to her face. And both times I watched it, I burst out laughing, and I think I was the only one laughing in the theater because I looked around and I was like, I like covered my face.
Because everything's a product. Or the Renfield character too was funny. The guy that was. I'm like, oh my God, did they really have to make him so funny? But that's how Renfield is. He's very eccentric and loyal, and he's funny.
And that's also the character that that also is in Nosferatu the Vampire, the Herzog one as well. I was rushing to kind of make this point earlier, I didn't get the chance, but I think it's a product of its time too. The Bram Stoker's Dracula, as we mentioned, that was huge. That was monoculture huge at its time. One of the reasons why is because it was so gothic and stylish, but it also felt kind of its times. Because remember, most vampire movies we were dealing with AIDS. Coming all back to hunger, like that was like so almost any vampire movie more or less was going to be about AIDS or something around it, risky sex, risky behavior, et cetera, et cetera. We're dealing with a completely different cinematic experience now because we've had decades of self-aware movies. You know, your Screams and like, you know, What We Do in the Shadows, so on and so on, that has us thinking about vampire tropes in a way that as very deftly deployed humorously in Abigail, you know, where she runs in to get the garlic and comes back with the onions, you know.
Well, the fucking onions.
Great stuff. But we're dealing, hold on, this is the actual point I'm making, is that like, I think that like with...
Take time.
Never mind.
No, I want to hear what you had to say.
I think it's of its time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of at a moment also where, I mean, the AIDS point is really like on point, because now anytime you hear reference to plague, right, and like hospitals and a plague, like COVID is the first thing that, you know, you have to think of, because we're in this kind of post-COVID moment. So, I mean, the whole idea of a plague, like we talked about this with the original Nosferatu, and, you know, the diseases that were going around, and disease as like kind of a thing for both like the immigration and, you know, the Black Plague that, you know, had gone
Spanish
by. Like,
flu.
Yeah, like, so every level of, or every decade of these vampire movies, I think, hits on a different level, because we're always dealing with something, an outbreak, or like they always come around at a time when that's a thing.
Do you think that's why this got greenlit? Maybe because it's right. We got greenlit right kind of around COVID, where people are thinking this is a good choice.
I mean, he had been working on it for like a decade, so I think he wanted to do this like long before.
Just lined up well.
Yeah, I think it lined up, but like they were doing the filming of it while the pandemic was happening. I think the filming of this actual movie got pushed back because the pandemic happened in the middle of it.
Yeah. And also too, the casting, like I don't know if you guys know this, because you know Anya Taylor-Joy's always worked with Edgar. She was supposed to be Ellen, and Harry Styles was supposed to be, you know, Nicholas's character.
How does that switch?
Yeah, dodge a bullet there.
Yeah, but a lot of people were like, "Oh, I really wish we could have seen Anya instead, because Lily Rose Depp just doesn't do it for me." I'm like, Lily Rose, I don't even think the physicality of Lily Rose's performance, I don't even think Anya Taylor-Joy could even pull a performance like that. Like, she's great, don't get me wrong, but I don't even like, she doesn't have as much as of a melancholy face like Lily Rose has. What do you guys think?
Yeah, she's
Like,
kind of got a
Conan, you mean it?
Yeah, Conan.
And kind of like Isabel Johnny as well. Like kind of like, again, as you mentioned, the intro for us is like this sort of classic features. I'll admit I wasn't very familiar with her. I avoided the Idol show like it was an actual play.
Yes.
So I was not familiar with her work, or I didn't know anything about her. So I was coming in blank slate, but I thought she was wonderful, and I thought she definitely approached things with a physicality that, you know, made it memorable. And again, I actually feel like that role specifically is very different than any of the other iterations, in the fact that there is some degree of female agency to it. Now, is it girl bossing? No, of course not. But like that's a distinct difference, and that's a modern difference too. And when I was getting at earlier with the saying that like Bram Stoker's Dracula being a product of its time, as well as, you know, Herzog's Nosferatu in its way, and the 1922 the Expressionistic. We can get a whole thing into German Expressionism if you want. I think the idea that we're dealing with. You have anytime women feel anything or do anything, it's like, okay, well, this is you're accursed somehow, or like there's something good, or
hypersexual.
Sure, but like it's interpreted as like something, you know, afflicted, and I think that's been dealt with before, but it hasn't been dealt specifically this way. And I think that if you have someone that is less of a good physical actress, I don't think it comes across in this one. I think it comes across great in this one.
Yeah.
And I think she does a wonderful job. And
how did it go from not being Anna Taylor-Joy? I don't understand what happened there.
Mad Max Furiosa, she had a scheduling conflict.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And according to Eggers, Lily Rose's audition made him cry. Like, she was really, really, really good. And since you mentioned Edward Scissorhands, Lily Rose Depp was doing an interview. She's like, Edward Scissorhands frightened me when I was 3 years old. She's like, not because I thought it was scary, but she's like, I was so sad about how everyone was treating my dad in the movie.
Oh,
I'm like, oh.
Also, she was 3 years old when that came out, and that makes me feel incredibly old. That makes me feel like a fucking Nosferatu.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
She's very close with her dad, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can see the family resemblance in the way that her facial features are, right? Like her her nose and the way that her eyes are. You can see that family resemblance. But at the same time, she's got like that great classic silent movie actress face. She's got the really
the French mother.
Everybody, I think, in this movie really has a great silent era face. Like you found people who had very large eyes, very expressive large eyes. Pretty much everybody, even like Emma Corrin, right? Like.
Yeah, Anna Taylor-Joy definitely has large eyes. I think Harry in the chats put it the best when he says she knows what an iPhone looks like face. Like, none of the actors in this quite have that, and that's kind of key. Yeah.
I've heard that phrase before, and I think that sums up a lot of what I have when people are miscast that way. But I think that also, I mean, what Emma Corrin, who I saw, she's in that great. She was in that really great TV show done by Murder at the End of the World. I don't know if I was the only one that saw that.
Also played a younger Princess Diana in The Crown.
Yeah, she's Princess Diana. It's hard to not see her as that.
But
she looks like the real lady in real life.
But a Murder at the End of the World, Britt Marling. It's like Britt Marling who did the OA and many other awesome things. Really like brilliant filmmaker. It was seeing her in that I was like, oh, she's this chick's interesting. I mean, she looks like she's like 14, but like she's actually has like some skills. Because I was like the whole time I was watching this show, I was like, huh, what do I know this chick from? And I was like, oh, she's on the Princess Diana show that I've never watched. Okay, cool. Like, and it was one of those things where it's like I started noticing her in like small parts, and she definitely has like that almost like Victorian kind of like.
And Deadpool Wolverine, Cassandra.
Right, Cassandra Nova. That's
I spent 15 minutes in the car trying because I didn't want to. I was trying to do it without checking my iPhone. I was like, where do I know her from? And I spent 15 minutes after watching Deadpool Wolverine in the car, and I was like, The Crown.
Yeah,
that over the pandemic.
Oh, nice. Got some people from 70mm scored in here. What's up, next issue podcast? Yeah, but it's well cast. He has a type though, for sure. Eggers, like he has a type, which is why
Willem Dafoe is his type.
Willem Dafoe is.
I love that.
I love that Willem Dafoe also played Shrek / Orlok in Shadows of the Vampire. Right?
Yeah,
like that's so freaking awesome to me. Like I love everything about that. But the one baffler to me is Aaron Taylor Johnson. A lot of people were really bothered by him. I mean, he's just one of those guys. To me, he's just a guy. I can never remember who that guy is. And they're like, oh, he's in all these movies you've seen. I'm like,
he's married to a Predators, but whatever.
He's married to the Predator?
Yeah, like she
goes cloaking all the time. You don't see him.
Yeah, Sam Johnson. She met him when he was like 16 and she was like almost 40. So
and they're still together and it's been like 27 years. They could do May December.
Classic, I was gonna say classic May December relationship.
Oh man, that's why he's in there. I mean, like
okay.
I was just guessing he's the one person that people seem to single out as like being like out of his element or out of his depth or just not really like bringing it. I thought he's fine. He was fine. Yeah. He's just like he's the rich friend. What do you need? What do you need out of him? Is he the rich friend? Yeah, great.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't talked about Bill Skarsgård yet because he was supposed to be Nicholas Hoult. He was not supposed to be Nosferatu at first, but they were like, I'm like, they were considering Mads Mikkelsen.
Oh, I would have loved that too.
as Orlok.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That would but Nicholas Hoult is actually taller than Bill Skarsgård, so he had to wear like platform to make himself more imposing and taller than like all the other men. And so most of the performance, Bill Skarsgård said he worked with an opera singer to really lower that register and focus on the voice because he said the voice would be the important part because you don't really see him that much. But what we do see of him, a lot of us girls are like, yeah, I would.
He looks like my dad.
maybe that's why you didn't care for it as much as like my dad's in the Orlok.
God, Jesus!
I want to see Dad's
as
vampire
the one
dog.
who has the most Slavic exposure. Yes, I was like, yeah, I've met this guy and bought a really good glass of kvass from him, but like,
yeah, Chris Columbus, who again, helped produce this movie.
Goonies,
Home Alone, Rent.
Well, they've had a long-standing relationship, Eggers and Columbus.
Yep, he was afraid
all the way since the Vavitch.
Yeah, he was afraid of approaching Bill Skarsgård until Bill Skarsgård made everyone laugh in that makeup. Count Borat.
So that's kind of like Martin
Scorsese. I can't approach him, and I'm like, why would you be like? I would be like, what's up? Because he's like tall.
I think what works for me about the Orlock costuming is that, well, one of the things, right? Because at first, I saw it twice, and the first time I saw it, the mustache was kind of jarring to me, and like the design was kind of jarring to me. But but seeing it again, I didn't even really notice it, and I thought it was good. The thing I think that made it work, one of the things, right, is that you don't really see him even when he's in the scenes, he's always shrouded in darkness and shadow.
You're right.
And I feel like if they spotlighted him in the middle of it, and this movie uses natural lighting throughout it,
or even included him in the previews, because that was the thing with the previews, just like with classic monster movies and stuff, right? They didn't include anything that showed what he looked like, so it made it a mystery that even when he shows up, which and the people that were hurting on the long runtime, look, I get it, I'm a big fan of make movies shorter again, but it does tease it out a long time, right? And you get scenes like that great carriage scene, which is oh my god, this is that should have been just a preview. I'd be like, stop right there, take my money.
The shot before the door opens on that scene, as much as I will whatever I feel about this movie, that scene made me go, that was really beautifully shot.
Yeah,
was I the only one that assumed that we were gonna get a Orlock Rising, the classic GIF and the classic thing, an homage to it or something? And no, none of that. And I actually appreciated that, because we see so much. I don't know, can you call it fan service when it's over 100 years? But yeah, I mean, I appreciated that wasn't there. But then also it's he's hanging brain. Okay.
Yeah. But the hand though, that was obviously that you have to include that obviously.
Yeah. I liked how Linda Murr, I think that's how you say the costume designer's name, also gave him pieces of clothing that were way bigger than he was. So it almost looks like he's hollowed into that cape, which is historically accurate. And his soldier hat, which is a hat of a much younger person. It doesn't match where he is in his life, but he's still wearing it and he's kind of falling into it. As much as he looked like my dad, I still enjoyed the costume and the way they put the costume on him to make him look almost feeble inside of it more than scary, which might also be why I wasn't so scared of him.
Well, but then there's also the one scene that isn't there that's and this isn't I think every iteration where he's goes to hand him some at the dinner table and then he's over to this other place. How could he have moved so quickly? That kind of those kinds of things always, and that's classic. That's classic Eggers stuff, right? But he's definitely more just kind of it's uneasy, what's with this guy? But not in the same way as Herzog's was. Herzog's Nosferatu was this guy.
Yeah,
Jesus.
So I rewatched the Herzog one last night, and I rewatched it, and there's something so pathetic, and I mean, because it's but there's something so pathetic and human and vulnerable and sad about the Kinski version of Nosferatu, and it's he's lonely, and he also wants to drink. I mean, he wants to infect everybody and drink their blood, but he's also very lonely and needy about it. And that's not the vibe that
you never get that in this movie.
Also,
it's more predator prey, right?
Yeah. And what I like most too is how in Bram Stoker's Dracula is a photo of Mina, because she looks just like Elisabetta, his long lost love, who offs herself because she thought he died or whatever. I like that they use a locket of hair, and he immediately was Liliac, I guess that must have been the his long lost, that looks just like Lily Rose Depp or whatever.
I think you're saying lilac.
Yeah,
I actually did too.
No, it's Liliac or something like that. I was like, lilac. What?
And that goes to the historical accuracy with the you got the voice and you got the jargon going, so it's oh my god, where's my interpreter?
Yeah.
Well,
what's this guy saying?
The old time was like this.
I have to look up what the actual name of the language is. They resurrected a dead language for Bill Skarsgård to use in this, and it's an ancient form of Romanian, but it's a
Take
dialect.
that, Daniel Day-Lewis.
But it's a dialect of Romanian. They only have 100 words in because they've only been able to resurrect that many words based on like symbols that literally they left behind.
Luckily, he's not that loquacious.
So when he's speaking like a different language, it sounds like they're running his words backwards, but they're not. He's speaking like this dead Romanian language.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
So I do think that's kind of an interesting delineation, the kind of vampire that it comes off as opposed to being this like the one that you're saying from Klaus Kinski, because it's like he is so purely evil that he says he is just appetite, that it isn't even a morality thing. It's almost as if like we're talking about viruses, we're talking about COVID. It is a consumption for the sake of consumption. Cells are going to consume, cells are going to divide, they're going to keep coming, versus the like contrasted evil that's performative that you sort of get in his like Renfield associate. And I think this movie hits that kind of well.
Yeah. And again, that also kind of hammers back to the earlier point of it just being like a vampire movie for the times.
Yeah.
And obviously it's on everybody's mind as we have apparently a new pandemic coming. Great.
Yay! And Trump's overseeing it. I can't wait. It's gonna be so good, y'all.
Awesome.
Watch. Just wait and see.
We like remakes so much, we're just doing a real life remake.
Wow.
Yeah.
Too real.
Too true.
Yeah. So, he is just oppressive evil. And I like that there's a lot of rat work in the Herzog one as well. But there's even more rat work here. I mean, I love the fact that there was like a rat trainer, which is awesome.
Yes.
Like a rat wrangler. I'm not sure the official
rat catcher.
Rat catcher, sure.
And actors were worked with
If
the
they go
rats
wily.
outside of their scene, so it wasn't just like, okay, we're taping you. Here's some. Like
Yeah,
everyone.
here's some rats crawling on you.
And
Everyone gets to
McCorvin
get
really
used to
worked
it.
with her rats. Yeah.
Well, I like that because that's showing, and that's the thoroughness of the subject matter that Robert Eggers does, right? Like, like love him or loathe him, like the guy goes deep. And because of that, you get lots of detail. And sometimes it shows up in rat wrangling, which I just like that as a term. And sometimes it shows up as like just those vast sweeping vistas and landscapes, which again is another callback to the Herzog version that like it's sort of like Herzog just liked doing lots of cool landscapes and I guess there's a vampire in here too. But like I think that there's a good balance for that. That's also an homage to that, as well as an homage to the Murnau one as well. That you just get this idea of the scope and scale of like you're going someplace so remote, so far away from everything. That, like everyone's like, why are you doing that? Don't do that. Don't go to that place. Don't do those things. And also sell some real estate.
Yeah. like
like
the Romanian, that little village. They're like, don't go there, scheduled. Like they're like, don't go there. Like, please don't. Like every time they're like, no, go there. You will not. But
also, I mean, like when you're in that, not just in the second part too, but like in the first part especially, I feel like every like 2 minutes you could just take like a screenshot and you've got the coolest piece of art you could hang on the wall ever. And it doesn't matter what it is. It's like random villager just like hanging out.
So
It's like, wow, that's amazing. What is that?
Yeah.
Is there a point at which that in and of itself becomes so much of a hat on a hat that for some audience members it is not going to draw them in? It pushes them away from the story because there's just too much stuff going. It's like if you like Baroque art or if you think that that's kitschy.
Yeah, like a lot of people were like, where are we? Like a lot of people they just want to see Bill Skarsgård. They just want to see like that. I'm like, guys, you don't understand the original Bram Stoker story and in the Nosferatu, like in the original, stories, that journey takes a while, and we have to see what he's going through to get to Count Orlok.
I also don't even think it's a not understand. I think it might be a sensory overload.
Yeah. Sensory overload. That's my new nickname, by the way. I'm the sensory overload.
That's my friend's band's name. That's why I said
it. No, but it is, and I think it's kind of meant to be because that's a little bit Eggers' sensibility, right? Like it's sort of like you're being overwhelmed by the natural or unnatural world at all times, and that's something that I can see people being into and not being into. It is immersive. Well, it's like the vibes are definitely rotten, to be clear, but like the vibes are there for sure. Yeah. And I think that it's also I had something for this. I can't remember what it was now. But the darkness in this movie is a character in and of itself.
Oh yeah,
it's all over the place, and it's one of the main characters. Frankly,
we succumb to it literally.
Yeah, I think that's maybe part of like a little gripe that I have is that it is so visually adherent to the German expressionism aesthetic, and then yet it is like it's more of a Gothic romance thematically versus like a little bit more of what you would get with a German expressionist. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, I think it also probably has to do with if you're familiar with the original Nosferatu or not too, or Herzog's version. Like, because I think most people are, if they're familiar with vampire stories, are going to be like, at this point, like What We Do in the Shadows, right? Bram Stoker's Dracula. I mean, like I said, like I mentioned in that episode, that iteration took over in people's popular consciousness over Bela Lugosi, which is saying a lot because that was like decades and decades and decades. But the actual story of Nosferatu is like lesser known.
Yeah.
To a lot of people, obviously not this panel, not people listening or viewing the show, and I think that's going to have a factor for some people that they're going to be engaging with it.
My question. My question was, did you feel like that the story had German expressionism aesthetics, but not really much in the narration?
I mean, I think that it was fueled by trauma, which I think is a big part of what made for German expressionism. So I think that part of it, there's a lot of unspoken trauma that goes through this film, especially in the Lily Rose Depp story, where she's, with the, I guess, impliedness of her growing up, and then that loneliness that she feels, and with Nicholas Hoult and the way that
like alienation,
he's actually like physically traumatized by Nosferatu more than I think the other versions of even like the Nosferatu story seem to be. I think that there's a lot of unspoken trauma, and I think that that's a big part of the expressionist mold, because it's like, it's not the same thing maybe as the post World War I like physical trauma of going through violence. I think so much of that part of it was spurred by, but it still is in its own form. I think also though, what Eggers is always trying to do in all these movies, especially like starting from The Witch, like is construct what we actually find scary about all of these, the folktale sides of things, right? Like, so he went in depth with how the ways that folk stories have told about vampires before making this, and maybe that expands past like the specifically Nosferatu version of it. But like, his people actually speak like Transylvanian, and like Romanian, and like he has all these different elements that actually come from Romania for this. And there was even like there's scenes where the face is lit of the of the Orlok character in red, and like there's all these stories where vampires in Romania have red faces, and like there's all these other elements that he's bringing into it, and these folk tales. And I feel like he's always looking at folk tales. He's always looking at deconstruction, like deconstructing why we find vampires scary in the first place, and why these stories have withstood centuries of retelling and retelling. And I think that's more of the angle he was looking at this from.
And I think he was inspired by like initially the image of Nosferatu, not even the movie.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was But I think it can be summed up to Katie, what you're saying, that like similar origins but different results. And generationally it would have to be, because we're not, I mean, it's 100+ years later.
He's not a German
it's gonna be
after the First World War responding to how that culturally feels. Kristina, what do you think?
I mean, I think that's that's definitely a good point too. It's German expressionism is not as, I guess, not as common as a form of art anymore when it comes to filmmaking. So you have to find a way to not directly like copy and paste that, but you have to make it your own, so that it's like. And again, a lot of people are not, as familiar with the original Nosferatu unless they watch SpongeBob. Like, so like,
go watch M. That's German expressionism, and it's an amazing movie.
Yes.
Well, and the thing that happened with M and with German expressionism as a kind of as a form of art, right? It moved to Hollywood in the 1940s and the 1930s, because all of the directors that did German expressionism were either purged and killed off by, or ran away from the Nazis. So like it was kind of died out as an art form in Germany, and then it was resurrected by people like Hitchcock and even like Orson Welles here. But like, and the way that
Clouseau too. I mean, there's all kinds of folks that were coming off it, but they were coming off that as something that was known by society. Like as an art form, as an experience, in a burgeoning medium that still was. The people didn't know what it was yet. Talkies were new. And I think, Third Man. I mean, we covered Third Man when we did a Noir Month, right? And like we talked about all this stuff here, the Dutch angles, all that kind of stuff. And I think that so there's been all these different experience these medium for these creatures and like what they want, what type of vampires they are, how they engage with everything, that we also have this inbuilt expectations. And that's, when we did Vampire Month, we did with From Dusk Till Dawn and Abigail, and which were like, these are like pretty modern of like, look, there's a certain degree of awareness, but are they really that aware? And I think that's something where Eggers' challenge for doing this is to be painfully earnest for wanting to bring these arresting, gorgeous black and white visuals to the screen and bring something that's genuinely unsettling. And then to have people, and to have it be historically accurate, and have people be like, I don't like that mustache. It's got to be killing him. It's got to be killing him for that. He's so detail oriented.
I also think, and I watched Eggers talk about this, and I have like clips of him talking about this. So I pulled a bunch of. I still pull clips, and then we don't use them.
But we talk a lot. It's good discussion.
Yeah. I feel like I leaned on clips too heavily when we first started doing the show, and I was like, here's a clip. But I was listening to him, and every single time he says the exact, and like when people are interviewed, they kind of like a canned response to how they go through their process around the story. This canned response is about how he saw Nosferatu, the difference for him between Nosferatu and Dracula, and we can talk about this, with other forms of but like his version, what he took from it is that he felt like Nosferatu is far more of a folk tale or like a fairy tale. And that's, I think, where the expressionism of it pokes through, because it felt to him more like one of those older German fairy tales. And he's someone who really is obsessed with Brothers Grimm and like Hansel and Gretel and all those stories like that. And he looks at folk tales, and that's really what he wants to create on screen. So his version of Nosferatu versus like the Dracula characters, Dracula is obviously a more like humanistic interpretation, whereas Nosferatu is more like fairy tale version of that same story.
Well, and that's also the differences with the iterations too. Like Herzog's Nosferatu, there's nothing aristocratic about that Nosferatu at all. Like he's just like some rat-looking dude who's like all bummed out.
He could have used those. He would have been crazy on incel forums.
Now, there's something I want to discuss because, again, it's all over TikTok, and people were having like discourse surrounding the dynamic between Ellen and Count Orlok. They're like, "Oh my God, he's a predator, he's a rapist," blah, 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 blah. And yet
there's a crazy age gap between.
Like all these weird things, like, oh, he took advantage of her, he assaulted her, he took her innocence since she was a child, and yet Lily Rose Depp was like, they have this deep connection since she was young. Like there was always a connection between the two of them. Like darkness was always going to be succumb to darkness, is how Lily Rose Depp explained it. She's like, something that she discussed with Bill and with Eggers as well. There was always this weird, sensual, erotic type of like dynamic between Count Orlok and Ellen. It was always going to be there. And that's how she makes the sacrifice. She has to do what she has to do to, end the plague and take, keep him busy till sunrise.
And that's the agency part of it, because I think it is a little unclear that, I mean, she's a child when ultimately when she makes this initial connection, which is sort of like, but then also I hate for everyone to hear about the Middle Ages.
Yes.
Just saying. And I think that, even going back to The Witch, which I know you guys don't really care for, and it's obviously not, it's Eggers' first installment of like of a movie, right? And he has a million regrets that he's talked about making that. But I feel like this movie has the same kind of deconstruction to it, where he, during The Witch, and I'm not saying he successfully did it, but he was trying to deconstruct these witch stories that we've had since, for centuries, but especially the Salem witch trials, and like the Puritans were obsessed. And there's a side of it where it's like, when you're in this like hyper Christian, Puritan society, there's always like a sexual element, whether that's a panic or whether somebody's giving into that. And in the same way, I think with this, he's deconstructing the two sides of what we find, like frightening and full of dread about vampires, but also there's that sexual side. And I feel like it really leans into both of those parts in this version of it.
And specifically with more of an acquisition predator prey sort of element rather than any like level of romanticism, which I think is an important distinction that I'm not sure if we're used to seeing that culture in movies, unless it's something like 28 Days a Night or something where it's like, oh yeah, no, these are just like, they're gonna get you.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like it's almost like that Faustian element.
Yes.
Right.
And there's always like wait, Kristina, I'll let you say it after this. I just want to say this really fast. There's always like certain kinds of predators, like those anglerfish, you know, that have like the light on them. Like there's always the side of it that tries to attract their prey in a certain way. Like, and you always have that with like, they talk about it with like Ted Bundy, right? Like if Ted Bundy was like an overweight Slavish kind of very creepy individual, rather than kind of being more of like a normal seeming guy, right? Like everyone would have just gone, oh, that's a killer, I'm going to run away from him. So there's this kind of predator. When we look at predators in like the humanoid, like human sense of it, I guess they always have this kind of weird aura about them that people kind of wander to. Otherwise, you're just like, no, I'm just going to run. Like,
yeah. But yeah, I liked how Lily Rose Depp, like when she was doing these interviews, she was describing like the dynamic between Count Orlok and Ellen, because a lot of people were just going off saying, y'all should not be romanticizing this movie. Y'all should be hating this movie for what it did. I'm like, but that's the story though. That's always been the story. Like this weird, like, I don't understand like how I'm like, this is even in the Dracula. I mean, again, this is based off of Bram Stoker Dracula. A lot of people still don't know that.
It also reminds me of a concept people are saying that. I think that Eggers often says that meanings can be brought to his movies by the audience. So if the audience member is going to bring that meaning, then that's the meaning they brought. I also think it really reminds me a lot of an aspect that you'll see in 20th century Danish painting, which is that like they'll paint this really perfect still life, and then in the corner one of the fruits will be slightly rotting, and they paint that in to remind you that there is always this presence of death coming. And so like Orlok isn't really a thing that she's sleeping with and a real corporeal person, although as much as you want to go into that hot dad bod thing, whatever. It's more of like this lusty dance between death and the maiden, which we see in the final painting, which I did a video on and we could talk in a second about. I won't go too long. It's just that like whenever we see Ellen, she's so beautiful, she's so pure. She's gonna die someday. That's kind of what Orlok is like there to remind us that, like, even from a child, she was always destined to die, as we all are.
And that's back to him as a manifestation of like death, right? Which is sort of, it isn't like, hey, here's some rich guy that's gonna rescue you from this peasantry. It's like, no, this
she was
death.
so happy. She was so happy.
Well, I think Harry points out really well that all the other men in Ellen's life are really, really almost worse than Count Orlok. Right. So in a way that like that death is the release of her savior from this world that can't even seem to understand who she is.
Yeah, because they're like, this bitch is crazy. Like she's having seizures. She's talking about like loving and embracing darkness. Like this is, she should be institutionalized. Like she should get, lobotomy or whatever the hell.
I don't want people to get the impression that like Nosferatu is saying if you have a bad life, kill yourself. It's better. Like
I hear that's the message. I hear Orlok says it in the post-credits scene.
Death is inevitable is the message.
Look, we've had a lot of fun tonight. But I want to tell you, if you have a bad life, kill yourself.
Kill yourself now.
Kill yourself.
Oh man, we get demonetized. I had something to actually go with that shit. I forgot.
That's such a Nandor thing to say.
This is
Nandor de Laurentiis.
This is like kind of a long-standing thing, though. I feel like there's a feeling in different forms of, evangelical Christianity especially like leans into the whole like Satan is always trying to tempt you thing, but religion in general leans into the whole thing where it's like you call out to God, you're trying to speak to God, or you're trying to speak to these good spiritual forces, and how do you know that it's that voice answering you back? And I feel like in the beginning she's praying to something. She's praying to something. She wants something up there to connect with her. She's trying to connect, and then what she connects with is the force of death and the force of evil. But like you don't necessarily know that when you're it's like you put your phone into the world.
Exactly. When you fire up your internet browser, you don't necessarily know that's what's gonna happen.
They used to have those party lines, like where you picked up your phone and then everybody was kind of on the party line and you could like talk to whoever, and that's what the swingers used to
do. Age, sex, and location. What I remember I wanted to say earlier was like it just reminds me of how anytime people talk about time travel, and it's sort of like basically unless you look like me, and I don't mean a shiny jacket, like it's sort of like, well, it's going to kind of limit your choices because it's going to be a bummer for you no matter what if you're not like a straight white dude.
Yeah.
It's that it's the monkey's paw thing, right? Like it's like you wish for something amazing, and then there's always like a downside that comes with it. And it's like in this case, the downside is yes, you connected with somebody, but what you released is like a dark spiritual force that speaks Dashen, which is the language that I was trying to look up earlier.
That's what's going on. There's Moorhead and Benson did a movie called Synchronic. Anthony Mackie is in it. aka Falcon, aka Captain America, and those same guys did Resolution and like a lot of like The Endless, like a lot of cool like lo-fi sci-fi, something in the dirt. But it's one of the only time travel movies I've ever seen that addresses like, oh, you're time traveling while black, and that is like not ideal. to put it that way.
Don't recommend.
So in this case, when her character is calling out to the void, well, guess what? The void answers you back. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't, there's not an
guarantee.
age requirement of calling out to the void, just like there's not an age requirement on the internet.
I mean, there should be, but yeah.
There should be.
I just watched Conan the Destroyer last night, and the main character was an actress who was 14. So we were doing this shit in the 80s. It doesn't need to be medieval times.
Yeah.
True. True. Oh, man. Oh, so I have a little fact.
All right.
So, while the 2024 Count Orlok's stupendous mustache and fur-lined cloak are unique to him, his silhouette and shadow are identical to his 1922 incarnation.
Oh.
Which I saw a really pedantic person on that Nosferatu 1922 group or whatever that's like, oh well, you guys think that the new Nosferatu, right? You're like, oh, he would have had a mustache, he would have had the fur, but what about his claws? You're saying Romanians say claws?
Yeah, that group.
That's what I'm saying.
Wow, I thought we knew a lot of like Nosferatu facts. I mean, it's just like, how are there 40 posts a day on this? Like, how is this possible? It's almost impressive. I'm like, oh, you guys should do the show.
So yeah, if anyone's from that group, because I posted a link in there.
Oh yeah,
welcome.
That's great on you.
Welcome to our community.
Oh. And speaking of the lilacs, flowers often carry symbolism. Purple lilacs are handled and mentioned throughout the movie on significant moments. The specific variants with a lighter shade of purple are traditionally associated with one's first love or the first time one feels love for someone. An important theme in this movie.
I did feel for him though when he brings her the flowers and she's like, those flowers are just gonna die, and like throws it, and it's like, I don't know. If you've ever dated like an unstable woman, I don't know. I felt for him in that moment. I was like, damn.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like in that time period, you shouldn't have gotten this far into marriage, and this is the first time you're giving her cut flowers. Like, what else do you have to give a lady in this time period? Candy, right?
STD? I don't know.
I didn't realize that was his first time giving her flowers.
I mean, otherwise he gives it to her and she gets upset, and he's just like, "Fuck it, flowers tomorrow as well, bitch."
Yeah. Every time. Look, she's going to like these flowers eventually. I just have to keep giving her different types.
Exactly.
She was always meant to be a goth. So, like Ellen, she was always meant to be some type of like dark, type of like individual. Like she's like, yeah, they're gonna die.
That brings up a good point, because there is some depth to Thomas Hunter, right? Like, Hoult's character, which again, got to point out, he did play Renfield recently too. I just unfortunately didn't think the movie.
Also, not the first time Bill Skarsgård's played a vampire.
Yeah, absolutely. That's also true. But I think he strikes a good balance for who that character in these stories tends to be a plot contrivance. Really, it's like we gotta get the vampire over here. And so varying levels of acting ability. I'm kind of walking around it. Some of them, of course, maybe later become John Wick. Not great, folks. Not great.
I went down to Budapest.
I also just want to throw out this one quick fact, because I've been trying to say it for like the last 30 seconds about the lilacs. They only mean death at this exact time period because of Lincoln's wife. She started wearing lilac after he was shot, and that's why they're associated with death. Just gonna throw that out there.
Yep. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Yeah, she kind of went a little kooky after.
And she was not pretty psyched about that. No.
Yeah.
And also too, like with Thomas,
she lost 3 kids too during that time period.
Yeah. And with Thomas too, like he's like, I understand, I'm not going to abandon you. Like, I'm not gonna, I'm not an asshole. Like, whatever you're going through, I'm gonna support you. She's like, no, you can't handle me at this,
You can't handle me.
Yeah, you can't handle me at my whatever this is. Boss, you can't please me like he could. I was like, oh no, what's
Sounds
going
like
on?
a challenge.
Yeah,
2 seconds later.
He was into Super Saiyan mode too. He's like,
I do think they made the most like relatable version of Thomas. Like Thomas in
That
the
was my point.
1922 is an idiot though. Like right?
He sucks. The Herzog one, he kind of sucks in a different way. Harker is like kind of annoying. This is the best version. That was literally my point. I know you're waiting to your I like that. Sorry to interrupt that, but that like I think it's the best version of that character.
Yep.
Like by far. Like I think you can say like Dafoe as is amazing, and like there's plenty of great like Hopkins. Version of Van Helsing is fantastic as well, and it's the same sort of thing, but they're different types. It's like Hannibal Lecter, Mads Mikkelsen versus Hannibal Lecter, also Anthony Hopkins actually. But like I think that this, I challenge anyone to find a better, whether it's Thomas Hutter or Harker, whatever you want to call it, than this
Jonathan.
one. Yeah.
I do think this movie would have done better with Mads as the friend instead of the actor who wound up playing it in this version.
But he has
the one who fucks his wife to death.
That's a little Danish.
Everyone's
like, what? And I'm like, he loves her so much that he's going to get the plague and die as well. Like,
don't
we all love a little bit of necrophilia though? Like, come on. It's just me? No? Okay.
But it is kind of crazy. Like, he there's no way he can die that fast from it. He's
I
like,
know.
Oh, I came and now I'm dead. And it's like
the bad heart, I guess. I don't know.
Hey, people were not healthy back then.
So Harry St. Mickelson would have been a vast improvement over Anthony Theodore. I thought he was supposed to be Orlok. He was supposed to be the friend. Okay.
Yeah. No, if I'm saying we're gonna.
Are we fantasy casting?
Places,
okay.
Like, I just think that like now that we're talking about Mads, I could see him being really good in that like I'm in charge role. I'm just trying to save my wife.
Although he's supposed to be Thomas Hutter, and they would have just changed something because he's supposed to be his friend from school.
Yeah.
So they connected somehow in school.
He would have made a good like.
I mean, he could have been the teacher in school, right? Like.
He would have made an interesting, like Renfield type of character too. He would have. It would have been nice to see him go full
he's
psychotic.
all the characters. It's like a clump. Meet the clumps.
It's like the Muppets thing.
All Mads except Willem Dafoe. We keep Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
I'm not saying no.
Mads Mikkelsen is even Ellen.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Sure.
Look
at him. Have my attention.
You can see him have blood and like pouring out of his eyes and out of his mouth.
Sure.
Like, Hannibal Lecter style, Like.
Can I share with you my favorite fact since we're talking about blood pouring out of things?
How much blood was used in this movie?
Fantastic blood fact. In the final sequence, when they have the like pouring out of all of his body and his like every orifice. There are interviews where Eggers talks about wanting to also have it come out of his anus.
Yes.
And they like literally had to be like, that's too funny. And they pulled back. And I find him so endearing in interviews that he's like, we're gonna talk seriously about my movie, but also like I almost did a blood anus. And, like, so guys, no, I can edit myself some of the time.
Well, he also said that
wasn't that a trauma film, Blood Anus?
Yeah. He said one of the movies that he found the most inspiring for this movie. He watched Dracula Dead and Loving It a bunch of times, and he said that
I love that movie.
Yeah, so but he has an interview where he's talking about how he watched Dracula Dead and Loving It, and it actually let him look at all of the tropes and decide which vampire tropes he wanted to keep and which ones he wanted to change when he was writing the script.
Definitely Peter McNicol's Renfield, obviously for Nosferatu. I see it.
I think it's funny that when you go to interviews with Eggers, you would expect to get somebody like the guy who directed The Brutalist and that recent Golden Globe Award acceptance speech, but you get a guy who's like, yeah, Nosferatu. That's funny.
Maybe that's why him and Chris Columbus are buds,
Yeah.
Which makes me think of Martin Scorsese and Ari Aster. Like, what are these buddy combo cop movies that I need to see?
Yeah.
But it also, I mean, it makes you think
Brady
about
Corbett's a tool. Coming up next week, Brady Corbett.
But it makes you wonder all these kind of funny elements to it, because there are moments in it that do seem very funny. I mean, like some of those
is funny a lot.
Either intentional or or like that they're kind of leaned into that side of it, and that didn't take away from the experience at all for me. It actually made it feel, when scenes were getting too serious and when I felt too kind of drawn in by that, like a lot of times it would cut to something either funny or it would cut to something. Because
I was so drawn and it was bad.
I like Gothic romance kind of stuff, but like when they do it too seriously, like kind of period stuff too seriously, right? Like there are times where I'm like, I don't know, I just can't, like it's too.
Is this Pride and Prejudice with vampires?
Room with a view of vampires.
But I
had to do that to report.
I really love the line when he's signing the signature and and it goes, "We are neighbors now." That really made me feel like a Nandor line. That really felt like that could have been a scene where they were talking.
Ooh, we are
neighbors
now.
I think it's funny. Like a lot of people were saying, like he looked and sounded like. I'm like, no, his voice was much more deep than Nandor. Like a lot of people were like, he looks like Nandor, and I'm like.
But it's like, if that's all you know from vampires, and also like this, it's huge, and like it just had a season ender, so it's going to be on people's mind. If you've never seen like a mustached vampire before, like, okay,
what's the matter? Have you never seen a mustached vampire?
That's why it's so funny when a lot of people are like, he shouldn't have had a mustache. Vampires don't have mustaches. And I'm like, mostly every Dracula interpretation has a mustache on him. Like,
so I saw it Christmas Day
Me too.
as well. And yeah, I know, right? And I didn't know about the mustache. Exactly. She was a secret goth. I didn't know about the mustache, but then I saw it and my reaction was this, oh. And then, like, that was it. And I never thought about it again. Like, it didn't, I was just like, oh.
But then it became discourse for some reason.
Because I was like, wow, it's going to be crazy. Like, it's like, I feel like this movie isn't going on for forever. We haven't even seen him yet. That's like wild. I can't wait to see it. And then I see him, and I was just like, oh, interesting. But I didn't have like a, reaction or anything.
I didn't have an moment. I did. So seeing it twice, the second time I didn't notice the mustache at all. And the second time I was way more, because I knew what to expect, and it kind of, it was kind of a smoother thing. The first time I saw it, I think the first couple times I saw him, I was like, mustache, huh? And like it was zeroed in on it, but it didn't like ruin. Like I enjoyed the movie a lot, so it didn't ruin it for me or anything like that. But like that was exactly where my eyes immediately lasered to. I was like,
at first I was like, but then
people don't like change. I will say that like. For me, it just took away a little bit too much of the other, of it being unhuman. It made it too humanoid, and that took me out of the version that I wanted. And I just like, it was a creature design choice that I just didn't personally like. And I know that there's a huge debate over it, but like that's kind of where I think it's coming for some people, is that they didn't want the vampire to seem so human, and they didn't want there to be like so much of a love connection with a vampire, because then it starts to come to be Twilight, which people have really hard feelings about not wanting at all. So like, yeah, it just was too human for me.
Well, that's the thing for like a lot of younger folks who are like my age, their idea is like, I guess a lot of them don't understand, the dynamic between, Dracula and Mina, like, that type of romance. So they think Twilight, because they're the generation that grew up on Twilight. So when they think of romantic vampire stories, they think of Edward and Bella. They think of he can shine in the sunlight, or even the Vampire Diaries as well. So it's like millennials and Gen Z have a different way of viewing romance in vampire story. So that's why they did not understand why this connection was a thing. Like what the fuck? Like
vampires want you to get married before you have sex.
I'm very hesitant to say didn't understand. I want to say they came from a different viewpoint.
They came from a different place. Because the Gen X thing was, like I said, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Interview with the Vampire / Vampire Diaries, whatever, etc. I mean, we went over all that hunger on that. Like there's these other vampire representations that, again, were so ubiquitous that like no interviews, just vampire was a tagline from Dusk Till Dawn, because it was so culturally ubiquitous. It was like vampire interview with a Is like those words are paired together. But then Twilight had that same sort of it had that same sort of cultural cachet for a different generation. So everyone's going to engage with it on its own terms. Now, Harry said something in the comments. This is a point I was actually going to make. That was not what I was pointing up, but we'll read it anyway. Great. The voice is perfect. It sounded like it's coming from someone who had lived alone for so long he didn't talk much. It was raspy and atrophied. I completely agree with that. And what I was actually looking for is this. I love how serious it took itself. We've had a huge spate of horror films that are satirical or tongue-in-cheek. This was immersive. It was nice to live in another world for a while.
Oh, God, did I feel like I was living there?
I agree completely. And again, if it's not immersive for you, then obviously you're not going to have that experience.
Yeah.
Right? But like for me, I was like a treat. It was like a treat of a movie that like I don't have to like be self-aware and think about, oh, what are the rules for these things or whatever.
Yeah.
No, I don't have to think about any of that stuff. It's evil personified. And by the way,
I have a clip that I wanted to I have two clips I wanted to play before we jump to anything. But this is on the cinematography, and I think the cinematography is really key to why this world felt so immersive.
If this doesn't get an Oscar nomination, I'm gonna be pissed.
Well, and I think that's probably one of the things that even people that didn't engage with it agree with, right? This is like in school.
So his cinematographer, his name is Jaron Blaschke, I think is how you pronounce it. He's had the same cinematographer for all of his movies from The Witch on. So this guy's literally gotten a relationship with Robert Eggers where they've worked together on every single movie pretty much. So this he takes everybody through the entire process of the filmmaking and like why this felt different to me, I think.
Sequence, there's never really any sure footing. We're playing with a lot of confusion, and then we'll set up something and the camera leads you and you're never really sure what you're going to look at next was kind of an important aspect of this film. Part of the disorienting design of that whole thing, because it's sort of ambiguously a nightmare coming to the castle and essentially all the time in the castle, really. The door's shut, and then we're in a staircase. You see Orlok. We wipe in a staircase. He's no longer there, and then our eyes drawn to this kind of firelit, hall through this doorway. We push through. He's not there either. In this case, the long takes help make the magic of him appearing and reappearing even more magical. Then he arrives, he sees Orlok, and we're trying to obscure him. We don't want to give him away just yet. So we're using all the tricks we can think of. We're using great distance, darkness outside, the staircase, he's fragmented. Then we come up, he's gone again, and then you see him, as a true silhouette against the fire. The initial designs for that chamber had the fire in the side of the room. I asked Craig nicely, pretty pleased, could it be behind Orlok, for these reasons. He obliged. So you had the silhouette, and then you cut to the other side, then he's sort of, again, a fragment out of focus in the foreground, and then Thomas sits in a close-up, and then you have him out of focus. You see more of him a little bit, but it's still very out of focus. That side of the room is front-lit, so it's even more important that he remain very out of focus. And we're still using these tricks, what's real, what's not, where is Orlok? They can come appear magical, and hopefully all the more effective because we're living in real time, in a oneer, and then we sort of keep panning. And then there he is at the end of the table. Just try and make it magical. What can heighten the magic is if you get a grounding of something that you believe and also, living in real time through a sustained take.
Drink.
We used almost all the tools. There's a little bit of LED. There's a lot of HMI for daylight because I'm basically creating artificial versions of natural light phenomenon. There's real candlelight. There's real firelight. The early lookbook led us into this very romantic, lush texture and palette, not being afraid of beauty, which is kind of what romanticism is about, which is the predominant art movement at the time the movie takes place.
Leave there your conveniences.
I'm creative, but in lighting, I tend to be a little bit literal. If there's a fire in the room, I'm just going to choose where the fire is going to be and then embellish it, but it's still from the same direction. Everything's motivated from that direction, so you're still believing it's real fire. There's no electric light in the Great Hall. It's all that fire. If I want some more, I'll put some mirrors and I'll multiply the source. There's a brief period where I was going to put bulbs in a hole in the fireplace to, kind of do more of what the fire is doing, but in the end, we just amplified it with mirrors or just turn it up a little more. So when you go to a front lit direction, you have to break it up because then it gets too flat, so it needs to sort of fall off effect across the room. We're shooting Thomas's direction, and then you get nice rich cross light when he's at the table. I don't like too many sources. I think that's my tendency. I just like one careful one good one, and do that as best we can. I wanted to use real fire this time. We didn't do that on the Northman. I shot very slow film for the Northman just because I wanted this kind of very clean, epic look. The Lighthouse was black and white. Black and white film has not been improved since 1959. It's not so sensitive, so we needed something with a little more oomph than a real oil lamp, so that was very electrified. So this time I just wanted to try candles again and see if we could do it on film this time, because last time we did it was on The Witch, and that was shot digitally. We're big advocates of film. We would have shot The Witch on film, but, the first feature, you don't get that much, less money and less say,
Ain't that the truth?
So
life, baby.
I liked hearing about the lighting and how this is the first one they really used natural lighting, and because I think the Lighthouse I would have probably assumed that they did until he's like, but it's really hard to do with black and white, so that makes a lot of sense that they didn't use natural lighting for that, because it's like who's really even capable of seeing that anyway, right? But this movie, it was definitely natural lighting, and that makes so much sense that every light source really that they used was something within those rooms, and you really want to, I think, if you're doing it in one of those dingy castles, right? You don't want to have to. It's
going to look striking.
Yeah,
you can't have ring lights and bright lights in a dingy castle. No.
We're like, let me put on this ring light. Let me put it up so you can.
Jennifer Love Hewitt's over there with a ring light. What's going on? You're a different film entirely.
Yeah.
So I like hearing about that. Yeah.
Yeah. But the one little thing I want to talk about, real quick, is the Bill Skarsgård. He was covered from head to toe except for the soles of his feet. But he said that he could eat. His fingers were he could pop them off, which was very convenient for him, so he could eat. I mean, that had to take. I think that took 3 hours to do.
Yeah, what does that lunch truck look like?
By the way, I saw an interview with where it was Bill Skarsgård talking and Willem Dafoe, I think, talking about the
Nosferatu. They were funny together in their interviews.
But so one of them, they're talking about how they put all the makeup on every day for Bill Skarsgård, and then Nicholas Hoult was feeling really bad for him and kept being like, "Where's your mouth hole? Do you have here?" And was trying to bring water up to his mouth so he could drink water, and he's like, "Just leave me alone," because he's trying to get into the character. He's like, "You have some more water," and just trying to feed Bill Skarsgård water.
Yeah, and with the whole, he's been, a clown. He was Pennywise, so he was trying not to seem scary to the cast members. So him, with the kids and it, both, he wanted to be friendly and not seem imposing or scary. The kids loved him, so he was like that as well with the cast, because he's like, I don't want them, thinking that I'm, method acting or whatever.
Yeah. Don't worry, I sent blood to all my cast, man.
Jared Leto's Nosferatu. What a nightmare. Ruin a movie
that was an option.
Ruin a movie with one alternate casting.
Nicholas Hoult was supposed to be Nosferatu, I think, originally, but they were like...
Yeah, he would not have been a good Nosferatu. I've liked that guy since Skins, though. I remember watching Skins when we were teenagers or whatever. I remember watching Skins and being like, Nicholas Hoult was he's such a sad character.
Harry from the comments, it makes a point that I was actually going to make earlier and forgot about. I think we're not used to horror taking itself seriously, so it feels off. And again, that comes back to it taking itself so seriously that I do understand where there can be just nervous laughter of just what the, especially absent of context. Again, if you're not Nosferatu scholars like this panel, of course.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's something
why is she seizuring?
There's something to Robert Eggers not being a horror director, right? Because I feel like some of the reason that horror hasn't taken itself so seriously is that I feel like that as a movie subgenre has kind of been beaten down quite a bit by the industry, where a lot of horror filmmakers end up having insecurities where they don't feel as they're not taken as seriously, I think, as other types of filmmaking. I mean,
look at how the Oscars treats it. Toni Collette should have absolutely won Best Actress that year, but nope.
So
could Demi Moore win for The Substance?
I think it's possible now.
I think
they're saying that it sets a horror, a new trend for horror now.
And tune into the after party to hear us talk all about it.
But I do think with The Substance too, it's horror movies directed by people who are not horror movie directors.
That are not horror directors.
Yeah.
Well, we have a horror director on the panel. Maybe she has thoughts on it.
You wouldn't want to be pigeonholed as a horror director right now, with the exception of someone like Jordan Peele, I think, is doing a really successful job holding that banner proudly.
Very diverse.
Yeah, it's a hard modicum. It's kind of hard to carry, especially because Eggers is going to do it under the bastion of period piece, which means that the budget is going to horror is often like, okay, we'll give you some money. So Eggers is saying, give me all the money. I want to do all the research. I want to make it as authentic as possible. I want it to take as long as possible, and that scares the living shit out of most people who want to give people money.
Yeah. It's just like, hey, we got a gravel pit and a basement. Do what you can.
Yeah. Well, that's why a lot of people are, not to, go off topic, but like a lot of people are complaining, like, Perez, like, this is not a good award season. Some of these movies are just not good this time. And everyone's like, well, it's the strikes. A lot of people weren't writing stuff. Stuff was rushed. I'm like, yeah. So at least Eggers was able to get do this the way he wanted it. He envisioned
10 years. He was working on this for 10 years.
And it's weird because this is his first foray into something that he didn't. Well, I guess the Northman is adapted, but like it's not. It's like this is IP, right? I mean, at this point, we have to call it IP.
Yeah.
As much as I don't like using that term, but it is. I mean, it's also.
There are
but he's also correct that it is kind of the stuff of legend, of like just like the dark shadow in the room, right? And both those things can be true at the same time, and I think he does split that difference very elegantly here. But again, other people don't, that don't feel the same way. That's fine. Not everybody engages. It's okay to be into different things, right? But I think that he's good at the authenticity of period films, even if it's like if you look at The Northman. It doesn't have that glorified, the hats with the horns and it's all the things that we're used to seeing. It's like, no, it's the filthy and dirty, it's like the filthy and dirty Vikings. And like, no, this is how it actually went down.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think outside of video games, you just don't see that. Really?
Who could afford to make that?
It's because it's so much money, and it cost him so much money to do it. Everyone was like, oh my God, it costs how much?
Conan the Barbarian is like 84. Who had any kind of money for that then? Like,
yeah. I think it's so interesting that he was inspired by Conan the Barbarian for his version of a Viking film, right? Like, because I feel like a lot of these are like
you killed it, son. Like
his deconstructed version of all of these classic, genres or tropes or types of films, and like I think Nosferatu.
What if Hamlet had a fight in a volcano at the end? Yeah. I'm in. Stop right there. You've made the sale.
So that's really interesting what you're saying, Forrest, though, that this, if he keeps deconstructing everything that he likes and peeling it apart and then saying this one part of it is something I want to work with now in my modern day aesthetic that I have clearly as an auteur director have, that is a really interesting way to approach this kind of stuff. And it definitely worked for me with The Northman. It's curious as a way to do it.
Yeah. It's like action. It's like an action film style. But yeah, the conversation hasn't changed much since 2017-ish, which is a general critique of cinema. That's the death of the mid-budget movie, which is summarized because we have so much media consolidation. It's like you have to put $200 million into something to hopefully get $1 billion.
Yeah, and this was only 50 million and made over 100 million. So that's good.
I mean, it's a hit. It's like
million? That's only 2 Dusk Till Dawns.
Well, and everyone's just like talking about Don't Worry Darling. It was not only recouped, but made money, like a good amount of it, but it's considered a failure because reasons.
And because of us, we have made people change their minds on that film.
At least
You're
one
welcome, Olivia Wilde.
Exactly. We're doing the work, one viewer by viewer. Kristina, I know that you had some points you wanted to get to as well with this before we move on. We touched on it a little bit, but why don't we talk a little bit about the makeup?
Yes. So like I liked how for a lot of people don't understand, like back in those days, makeup was not really like a big thing. Like Lily Rose Depp had a perfect, like almost like bare face, which was perfect because her face is very expressive, very silent film-esque. I like the fact that they did not focus on like heavy makeup for like all the human characters, but I did like that they really were like, we're gonna go heavy-handed on Bill Skarsgård's makeup. And for those who don't know, Nicholas Hoult has his framed penis, prosthetic penis,
suitable for framing.
I saw a picture of him holding up the framed penis
because that's like when he rises to attack Thomas. I'm like, oh my god, Oh, that's his penis. Woo, okay.
By the way, I wasn't laughing at what you were saying, Christine. I was laughing at this. What if the vampire was a shark? which is very funny.
Water vampires.
I am Dracula shark. I am here to capsize the boat.
I wonder how they decided whether Skarsgård got it or Hoult got it.
I mean, Skarsgård
prosthetic penis.
Oh, I thought you meant.
No, Nicholas Hoult owns Bill Skarsgård's prosthetic penis. Like, yeah, he's like, this is mine now, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah. How did that conversation go down? Like, I guess I'll wear it, but you'll keep it.
Robert Eggers was like, yo, I'm gonna give this to you as a gift, man. Like, let's go. Like,
I noticed that you really liked that prosthetic penis, and I thought. And
I kept staring at it while we were shooting that scene.
I needed to come up with a birthday gift for you, so I decided I've seen you eyeing that penis in the window, so I decided.
How much is that penis in the?
And Ian Holm had that bronze of himself on the fireplace, so why not have that on your fireplace?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, show for the kids. But I do like that they were like, we're not just gonna make him look like classic Nosferatu from 1922. Like, no, we're gonna make him look almost very thin, very skeletal, and you really notice it at the end of the movie. You're like, oh my god, he's like bones. Like, and so they covered him up from like head to toe, besides like the bottoms of his feet. And there
it is. There it is.
Look how happy he is. They had to give him the penis.
Yep.
Got that.
Someone, the first comment is help.
Yeah. And so like even though Bill Skarsgård said like, you know, the makeup really helped to get into character, he did always, as I mentioned before, he said like the voice, says no one was really going to see him. He really had to hone in on getting that voice and that accent right, because he's like, that's the thing people are going to notice the most about me because of the natural lighting. Which
they resurrected a new language, like an old language form, which is insane.
Yeah. I mean, he was the best. A lot of people are resharing the Lily Rose Depp and Bill Skarsgård have been cast in Nosferatu. A lot of people are like, and thank God, look how that turned out.
I do think you see the makeup that they did on Ellen, the kind of stark makeup reflected also in her costuming. And it kind of seems as if she's saying like, look, I'm dealing with my husband has left. I'm terrorized every night. I'm having epilepsy. I'm not fucking putting on makeup. And my dress is just as good as it needs to be a fucking dress.
Yeah. It's practical. It's utilitarian.
Well, yeah, she's going through a lot. She's like not gonna fucking deal with this shit and put on makeup. Who's she putting on makeup for? The ghost haunting her in her epilepsy dreams?
Okay,
like, I'm not wearing a bra today.
Naughty girl should smile.
Another line that I don't know if it was supposed to be funny, but I laughed at both times. Both times I saw this in theaters. The other line was when they're like, yeah, we tied her to the bed, and then Willem Dafoe runs in and goes, untie this woman immediately.
Yeah, like what are you doing?
Yeah.
I was gonna say the corset that they use on her, like to go into the stupid nerdery that Eggers had. He's like, I want to make sure the shot has her face up. Is there a corset that opens from the front from this time period? And they're like, yes, there is. And they put her in that. Like,
right. I mean,
the cinematography lends to the authenticity. So, like, good job there, guys.
Yeah. So, the ending.
And so, spoiler alert. First of all, I don't know why
she
you're
dies.
watching
They
this.
die. They die.
Spoiler alert, everyone dies. No.
But to set it up, to set it up, Nosferatu and Ellen do come face to face. And he's like, you have 3 nights. Everyone's going to die. This marks night 1. And then her and like Willem Dafoe, they plot, a way to.
By the way, spoiler alerts. I don't know if how you would.
Spoiler alerts are galore, guys. Don't
blow every movie we talk about.
That's what we do.
That's what she said.
So,
hey.
So she ends up tricking Thomas, into staying home, getting all dressed up like a vampire bride, and Nosferatu comes to her. They kiss, they fuck. He sucks her blood. It's all romantic in a way.
Yo, you trying to? You up? You trying to have me come over and suck some of that blood?
Yeah, like it's a very like even when I was watching, I was like, wow, this is very strangely romantic and endearing.
But of course, the thing with Nosferatu is that he has to be the only way to defeat him is he has to be like out before the
The crone of the cock.
I can't say it. The crone of the cock.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's gonna just like that's silly. Some people are gonna laugh when you say cock, and then some people are gonna. It did have a little of a Ringu thing where like 7 days.
Yeah.
But I did really want to talk about the way that he sucks the blood out of her because there isn't a neck thing in this. And we didn't talk about that. And I will admit, because of that, I've trained my cat to no longer bite me. And that was one of the reasons I laughed the most in the movie. It was because if you've ever tried to bite the flat side of something, it's like you make like a really and he had a big nose too. So it was a lot like a noise. And I've been training my cat by giving them the flat side of my hand, and they fucking hate trying to bite that. So I thought it was weird but funny. But yeah,
I like that the vampire bites were in the chest too.
Yeah, like where the heart is almost like it's like. It's like it symbolizes that there was like a love there between them, but also too, she sacrifices herself in the end because she's like, the plague ends because of me. Nosferatu ends up being defeated because of me. I keep him busy all night until sunrise. Like, let's go.
Oh, I kept him busy all night.
She's making the choice to do it though.
Yes,
and that's what's very different about it. And there's even that acknowledgement, like where Dafoe's character, the Van Helsing stand-in, like acknowledges that. Right. And that makes it different than any other iteration. Now, whether it works for you or not, or whether it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. But it makes it different as a storytelling medium because it's using the framework of female agency, non-existent usually, around this time in how you take care of this plague, this like literal plague that's happening, as well as this supernatural creature that doesn't have all the foibles that we think of. Like, they're not running around with stakes like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where like a sidekick has like a stake and just like nobody knows any of that stuff. This is just like evil personified.
Yeah. By the way, the thing with drinking blood from the chest rather than the neck, in folklore, folklore, that was where so that's where the vampire originally was.
Sometimes it's the wrist.
Yeah, you definitely gotta have someone relaxed.
Yeah, and the last image of them together is very beautiful. It was inspired by a painting, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Let's get into that. So
there we go.
Spoiler alert! Here's the last image, everybody.
How beautiful!
They did not make it come out the butt. So
there's no anus.
No butt. But if you looked at that, you would definitely have a moment of being like, have I seen that before?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And you have. Yeah, I've seen it a lot. There's actually a lot of people who do variations on this concept and the concept of death in the maiden.
So this is one of them. This is
this one's from 1915. So this is probably the newest of the ones that we're going to show you, like the earliest to us, and then it goes back all the way to like 1517. And here you go. This death and the maiden are embracing each other, and it's grotesque, but it's also kind of beautiful, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's almost like the life cycle, right? Because the maiden is like the most innocent and the kind of the young version of a woman, and then death is the old man. It's like a
Persephone's in Hades.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one was the one that I thought of immediately because I feel like it is the most graphic match, especially if you mirror it and you flip it over and we're looking at the side that we don't see, then we would really be looking at. Yeah. And it's just like this really, I mean, particularly this is Munch. I think Baldung done a lot more of a lustful interpretation of this dance that these two people have between being young and being beautiful and being sexualized. And then also like this inevitability of death that comes with how much you desire this youthful opposite of him.
Right? Like this one here.
Oops, that's not the right one.
That was like that's her therapist, and she's
like stop, collaborate, and listen.
That's the wrong one. Sorry, I think I closed the tab. My bad.
There's just another one that's from like the 1500s. That's much older, and it's a little bit more porny. That's the one that got me in trouble on TikTok. So maybe don't show that one. It has a breast.
Not,
and it's a whole breast that you.
I can't. Don't get me banned on Twitch, please.
We've already told people to crawl themselves multiple times over in this show. This is probably not good for the metrics. Is this for kids? Oh yes, absolutely. Yes.
Taken off of tweet.
And so that final image is like both really grotesque and like really kind of beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a way, it is a happy ending if you really think about it, because she's finally like she's no longer like like I don't know, like trapped in this.
I have good news and bad news.
Living.
Yeah.
I will use my photograph to get you taken off stream.
Like she's finally released from this hell that is life, and I agree. I would choose it too. Like I'd be like, you know what? Embrace the death. Let's go.
I do kind of have a little bit of a question about that agency thing where we say that like she's choosing to do this in the end, and I feel like it's not entirely a self choice. I mean, there are 2 days where she doesn't choose it, and then like everyone around her starts dying, and it's just kind of forced into making this choice and becoming the hero. But it is not as altruistic as a decision, and that might be purposeful, but like I
mean, maybe there's a little coercion there.
Yeah,
well, but
it's also she'll be saving everyone else's lives.
But it's also not a hero's journey, though. Like, if we're dealing with someone that like she's got her own problems outside of the vampire. That like it's not meant to be a hero's journey.
By everyone around her.
Yeah, and just to say that she chooses it, I do feel like there's a little asterisk on that choice.
Yeah.
But isn't there always when it's when you're choosing to? I mean, I feel like it's not the hero's journey, but there is like when it's self-sacrifice, right? Like I feel like we do give people the idea of choice kind of with that, and in stories it's usually coerced in some form, like it's that sacrifice, right? Like eventually they're like, I need to face up to my death rather than running away from it, or rather than sitting there while it sits next to me and.
Yeah, although she could like almost not live in a world without these people, so might as well kill herself, kind of like, because if I don't kill myself, you all die. So what is killing myself? Like, it's a 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Yeah.
But it was clear she was very unhappy in the life that she was living, no matter how, even though she had a supportive friend, she had a really good husband.
Gets better.
Yes, exactly. That was like that. Maybe that's the message. Hashtag it gets better? ? Like
you do not have to kill yourself. You can make another choice.
It gets better.
I am here to convince you to live.
So,
all right, so Letterboxd, of course, is a site for film lovers to talk at with and to each other about the movies they love, maybe the movies that they didn't love, and maybe the movies that they were just horny posting on Maine about a
don't
vampire.
call me out, Conan.
It's a personal attack, yeah. And of course, everybody gets to chime and opine, not just Siskel's and Eberts of the world. Everyone gets to have their shades in bottom-up democracy, open source, if you will. And these are collected weekly for the purposes of putting them on screen for Forrest and the rest of the crew to react to in real time. These are the Letterboxd one-liners for Nosferatu. Let's go. A classic will they, won't they flick for the whole family.
Amen. That's I think that's what my audience thought.
That's why Christmas Day.
Will they, won't they flick for the whole family?
Will they or won't they? So it's okay to sing along during Wicked, but if I start biting people during Nosferatu, I'm in the wrong? Interesting.
I love this one so much. I saw it too.
Good points. I mean, no notes.
Yeah. Hypocrites.
If you think real estate is hard now, you should have seen it in 1830s Germany.
Yeah, jawohl.
I wonder what the commission on a house that big was. Like, that was a good sale. First time in.
Every version of the movie, they try to pitch it like, oh, you'll be good for a while as long as you sell this house for this evil count in this castle.
Right. Yeah, it'll be fine.
One and done.
They're always scamming him too, because it's like a dilapidated like ruin of a house.
That's not Nosferatu. That's Waluigi.
And speaking the ancient Waluigian language.
Yes, wait, this is known. If my wife swore fealty to some vampire dick, I would be upset too.
Yeah, she didn't have to say, oh, he was better than you,
In my dreams.
That's like when the Harry and the Hendersons, when they're like, "We love you, go on, get that." She was just saying that.
Yeah.
To, Go on, get him.
I liked his prosthetic penis more than yours.
I would hate to have been the rat wrangler on set. That job must have been stressful.
Those are professional rat actors, apparently.
Wonderful. Oh, we didn't talk about how great the cat actor playing Greta. Great cat actor.
By the way, those were also real wolves.
The actress Greta from the 1922 film.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are also real wolves that chase the carriage. And Nicholas Hoult was talking about how like the wolves like made eye contact with him, and he was like, "No, they were gonna try to grab the carriage before they pulled them back."
No, they're
great wolf actors.
I call him Rivers Cuomo because he be wheezing hard till the day he dies.
Yeah, there's someone was Vidarian, I guess, about his. His breathing.
I think mine was okay. If you could hear it.
Arguably the 3 best mustaches this year.
Yeah.
What are the other 2? I should have put that in the tags. Who are the other 2?
Exactly. Tag it up, Matt. What are you doing?
Amelia Perret.
There's some mustaches in there.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Count Orlok's Zillow game is unmatched.
Yes.
Apartments.com.
He'd be the worst ad reader. People are like, we have to subtitle this. Nobody can understand what the hell he's saying.
Come to Little Caesars for pizza.
Somehow this movie was way hornier than Baby Girl.
And I saw Baby Girl.
Was it good?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I got to see it. It's crazy. It's crazy they decided to call a movie and name it after Kyle MacLachlan, though.
Never show an ugly man attention. They'll never leave you alone.
That's a 2015 Twitter ass review for.
Yes.
There you go. Those are the Letterboxd one-liners for Nosferatu 2024. Please follow the show at our Letterboxd HQ account at Movie Night Extra, where we're doing stories of all the various movies we cover, including Nosferatu 1922 as well. Not that long ago, as well as many other vampire movies.
We got to do Nosferatu 1979, and then we'll be.
Exactly. We'll have the whole set. Tribeca.
Trifecta.
Oh, okay. Yeah, trifecta. Sure, that makes more sense. You can, follow us along on the Letterboxd account for lots of other attendant short form stuff, clips, things along those lines as well, with all the great stuff there. The Undead Plague Carrier, the Vampyre, Forrest. Is that always Flacco? He's logging all the stuff you see on this show, as well as many others.
Including I logged every Robert Eggers movie.
There you go. So follow him along to see what's doing with that. I am at Conan Neutron, none more black. You can follow me for the highbrow, the midbrow, the Populous Fair, Criterion Challenge 2025, not only underway, pretty good progress so far. So follow me along for that, as well as for KT, Baldassaro down there. We are both doing it. You can join us as well. We will interact with you, cheer along, warn away, as the case may be. But you can follow me in general. I finally broke 500 followers, which is cool. So thanks for people that are doing that. I love to recommend stuff when I can. Bill Skarsgård, framed prosthetic wiener. It got truncated there. I'm assuming it says wiener, not.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Framed prosthetic wiener.
Christina Oakes, Adam Kristina. I have a feeling we're going to be hearing that impression for a long time, by the way.
Yeah.
Adam Kristina on Letterboxd. Log in this movie and many others. You can follow along to see what's up in the world of cosmic politics on Letterboxd. KT movie runtime over there. Count me, maybe. Again, as mentioned, also doing the Criterion Challenge, login stuff for her show, What If I Don't Like It, as well as movie runtime, her username as well. So please follow all of us on Letterboxd. And there we go. Let's hit the hit it with the plug. Is that when people don't follow or when people do? I'm
I don't know.
Confused. Once again, reacting to so many visual. Sorry, podcast listeners, but
for those who are
branding
listening,
of garments.
I will hit them with the plug.
If you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe, and then hit the bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. And we'd humbly request that you watch the video to the end, because it helps us with the algorithm and helps more film fans to discover the show. We're also monetized. If you want to get your chat questions definitely read on stream, you can always send us a super chat, which will help us keep the show going. Every cent helps. If you're watching on Twitch, you can gift us a free sub on Amazon Prime with your Prime membership, but getting subs on Twitch is always appreciated, and it helps to follow us on there as well. We also have an audio feed, which is available wherever you download podcasts, if you prefer to listen to podcasts rather than watch the stream. That's updated usually the same day we stream, but watching on YouTube and Twitch is the best way to get the show first, live as it happens. If you want to support us with a monthly donation and get access to all of our after parties forever, which go patron only after we do them, you can become a patron at patreon.com/movie night extra. Link is in the description for that. It really helps us keep the show going since we do have some expenses to make this happen. We also have a Discord community. Link is in the description for that. We sometimes watch movies we cover on there. We get into conversations about everything from film to TV shows to related podcasts. We even have a Discord channel for memes. It's really fun on there. You can find us on all the social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, and Threads. You connect with us on all of those. Talk to us. We'd love to hear from you. Lastly, we recently made a TikTok at Movie Night Extra where we're putting up short form clips from the episodes. Okay, passing this to Conan so he can tell you about his music and this week's Protonic Reversal. Conan, who's on Protonic this week?
Yes. The fabulous Jim Kimball of Laughing Hyenas, Mule, and Jesus Lizard, as well as Ghost Force, finally coming on in 2025. First episode of 2025. The Kerosene 454 guys, Eric and Darren, that episode is up in the general feed. So people that want to check that out, no longer behind the patron wall, $1 a month, patreon.com/Protonic Reversal for that show. Early access. There's a bunch of cool stuff coming. I took a break for me, which was like 2 weeks over the holidays, and back at it. So plenty of new stuff coming. Same thing, Conan, Neutron, The Secret Friends, neutronfriends.bandcamp.com. I got all kinds of announcements coming probably into the month. We'll see, including the new record and quite a bit of tour announcements and stuff along those lines. But that's always available to listen to on all the various places that you listen to music. Caterwall, we are officially saving the date. That's what we'd made an announcement to make an announcement of big things coming soon. But it was weird. We have an official save the date note out for Caterwall 2025, which is indeed happening. Can't wait to tell you more. I almost don't know why we're waiting. Christina, what do you got?
Well, last night I was hanging out with a bunch of lefty Jubilee debaters, which is pretty cool, and those who have been on the React channel, and streamers and TikTokers. We played Secret Elon. Unfortunately, I kept drawing fascist cards and not liberal cards, and I was like, I was playing both sides. So everyone's like, Christina, I'm like, you guys are the fascists. I'm like, I love abortion. What are you talking about? Like, it was a really fun. I hope we're probably going to be doing more of these in the future. We're going to be bringing some of them on the podcast in the future as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, going to be streaming this week, cover all the weird Trump stuff. Apparently he's banning hot dogs.
He hasn't taken office yet. And he's not banning anything.
Yeah, he's like, he made his whole announcement once he got certified. And then of course, Shadow Saturday, we're getting closer to when Barnabas becomes a vampire. We're like a few episodes left to go until that happens. I'm excited. And then of course, Sunday Fun Day, we'll do whatever the hell's fun.
There you go. That's looks
well, actually, it was a bat
like a blast.
bit him. A bat. Well, actually, no. It's a dude carrying a stick with a string with a bat, and they just kept doing this to him.
All right.
So yeah, that's what I got going on.
Cool.
You're banning hot dogs. Okay. Katie, what do you have going on?
Buying all the hot dogs I can get.
You gotta stock up.
As I hear. Fucking maybe soon. Not too much. I'm revamping my channel, so if you haven't checked it out, you can click on the icon of me in the chats talking, or go look at the same time on YouTube.
Nice.
We increased female representation in the show by 2.
Oh, nice! Yeah.
Yay!
I just released that episode where you can listen to my friend Lisa finally get to see the Back to the Future 2 episode. It's doing well. It's right on the top of the page. So go take a look at that. Please do give me a follow there. I'm on TikTok, although God knows, we're going to find out soon about that court case on the 10th, if that'll still keep going. So if that goes down, you should be following me on YouTube, because that's probably where I'll pivot to for most of my longer form content, as well as on Instagram, which of course you can find in the link in that bio description that you find on TikTok or YouTube. So that's what I'm up to right now.
Didn't the incoming dude say that he doesn't care about a TikTok ban? Hot dog doesn't matter entirely.
No, he doesn't want it banned. He doesn't want it banned. Trump might actually fight the ban. I'm like, cool, good, thank God.
Stop this deal.
Well, TikTok edition.
Wolf. All right, more than enough of that.
All right, well, I guess it's time for the good old-fashioned final thoughts, starting with Kristina, who had all kinds of emotional reactions to this movie.
Yes. Well, first of all, we're having an after party.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning
having an after party. I got to send you guys the link.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the Golden Globe results. We're gonna talk about favorite movie surprises of the year 2024 and most disappointing as well. And we're just generally have an after party, which we haven't done in a while. So.
Yeah.
If you want to hear Forrest do that Orlok impression a lot, I'm sure. Tune right in.
Yeah. But I came in expecting a return to classic Gothic, horror. As someone who loved the 1922 film, I was like, okay, I'm familiar with Egger's game. I appreciate it. But
I see your game.
Yeah, I definitely think this is my favorite film of his, without a doubt. I was completely taken in from beginning to end. It made me I'm like, wow, I actually felt something in while watching a movie for the first time, and God knows how long. Well, I mean, I felt good things while I was watching Wicked, but it was more nostalgia. But I was like, wow, performances were amazing, the storyline, very beautiful, the script, obviously the dialogue and all that. Nosferatu, Electric Boogaloo, maybe, I don't know. If you haven't seen it yet, I understand how it's so polarizing to some people, but again, it's just how what people are used to in a vampiric story, these days. Not everyone's used to this type of classic story being told in this.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the thing across the whole vampire genre, right? There's always people have a lot of disagreements over what they expect from a vampire movie and what they think a vampire movie should look and feel like, and
sparkly vampires who shine in the daylight.
I'd rather have that conversation than some stupid political one that have vampires gone woke or something.
Me too.
Yeah, that's all my final thoughts. I do hope it gets some award nominations, maybe some wins in the future, because it didn't come out for the Golden Globes. So, but let's hope.
It's not really a Golden Globes kind of movie, though. It's pretty.
Yeah.
A million
prizes, though.
I have won the Golden Globe, and I am on stage for Best Actor.
Katie, let's hear some final thoughts.
I feel like being mad at this film is like being mad at water for being wet. I don't like what Robert Eggers cooks, and that's not liking cilantro. And it's so beautifully put together, and I can admire all the aspects of everything that went together, and I just never got immersed in it like you guys did. And so I didn't get to have that experience that you had. I had a fine enough experience. I'm not going to say that I hated this movie. It was like I sat down for a really, really fancy dinner, and I ordered exactly what I ordered. I saw it on the plate. I knew what I was getting. And then when I was done, I'm like, I'm still hungry. I wanted something that I didn't have. And
You wanted more blood.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that I wanted more blood. I think that I did find that it was so historically accurate and so painfully serious that in parts I found myself wondering. I go back to this Brechtian style of acting where we're supposed to be fully aware of the fact that this is a piece of theater, and of course it is. It's a period piece. Obviously, I'm not going to get fully immersed into that because of those boundaries, and so that's just a hang up that I had. And I want viewers to know that you might just not connect with this piece, and it's going to feel like sacrilege to you. You're going to go and goodly want to watch this movie, and if you connect, that's great, and if you don't, that's, Eggers is kind of that way sometimes. You can like some of his stuff and hate some of his stuff.
I saw like a lot of people who, I think just have a different taste of horror movies, but like, I respect just as much as like anybody else that were like, hey, this isn't my type of film, or I found this either boring or like, I wasn't connected with it. And it's like, I don't know, I definitely did, but like, it's not like, I think it's a matter of taste. Like, I feel like it would be far more sacrilege if you were like anybody else that didn't like it, was like, oh, this is a bad film. But like,
for bad people.
Yeah. Like,
or just say that it was badly constructed, or it wasn't beautiful in places, and the costumes were bad, and like they didn't put in all this time and effort. And I think that you could just as well say it's boring and not really encompass what you're trying to say, as you can say like, well, it's a masterpiece. Like both of those need to be fully fleshed out to defend either side. Yeah.
And I think Robert Eggers in general does a thing, and it's like not everyone's gonna like that thing.
The same
way that like a lot of people like really, really like violent and like bloody horror movies that go for the kill, and I'm like
Terrifier.
Unless I'm there watching it, knowing that, and also like kind of just loose, like hanging loose, like that's not necessarily my thing. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, and like I do want to say that I really, really like Robert Eggers as a person, and I love the fact that he's taking big swings and he has an auteur style, and like it might be my cilantro, but God, is he exactly what he is, and he's doing it to 9,000. So like, just know, if you haven't seen this film already, some people it doesn't work for them, and some people they get transcendent from it. It's gonna be a risk. You're either gonna love it or hate it. I kind of met it, so maybe you'll be in the middle. Who knows? Go see the fucking movie.
And make sure to like and subscribe too.
Conan, let's hear those final thoughts, which are going to be the opposite of.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like that's quite the setup, right? Yeah, we have a positive, negative, positive sandwich. I think this is absolutely
3-star review, by the way. 3 stars.
Yeah. It's okay. It's fine. All right. I think this is absolutely excellent. I think it's a must for any Eggers fan, but at least a must watch for any horror vampire fan. I think it's a great dark tale of obsession, twisted infatuation, and plague. It combines all the lizard brain terror of the original and the vast and ominous landscapes of the Herzog version, the Orlok being very repulsive but longing, and the very wrong romanticism of the Bram Stoker's Dracula without any pretense to the titular character being handsome or anything but a nightmare, basically. I think this does all those things, and at the hands of a filmmaker that's only gotten better and better. I will fully confess, did not love The Witch. And I was one of the rare people that was kind of disappointed in The Lighthouse, too. I did like The Northman quite a bit, and I felt a lot of people slept on that. And I think that the craft is almost impossible to argue against. Again, as I mentioned before, I think any 2-minute period you could take like a screenshot of the film and put it up on your wall as like the coolest piece of art you have in the room. I think he does an amazing job with the build atmosphere. It's so deep, it feels like a world you've actually fallen into and may not get out of. Black's as dark as a crypt, whispers of firelight. The darkness is a main character in this movie, like the main character. And I can't overstate how hard the visuals go and how much of it works for me. This is one of my most anticipated films of the year, and for me, it did not disappoint in any way. I'm glad I got to see it before other people didn't have the same experience. I think Eggers managed to pay homage to over a century of filmmaking for a beloved story, honor all of them, and do something different, which is almost impossible.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorites of the year.
I know. I was gonna say to that point, like it's good that he waited and did the Northman before he did this, because it's like, can you imagine if he went right from The Witch to like trying to do this? It would have been.
I mean, because the Northman is his first like bigger budget feature, and it wasn't that a huge budget, but it's like he had to learn how to make movies in that way. So like, we might see something totally different if he approached it.
He was like, that was his next idea, and he's like, I gotta hold off on that. Right. Which, I mean, like, I think one of the few complaints that I've seen about it that I kind of like, kind of agree with is like, I do think that like the script in some ways felt a little bit overproduced. I think that it makes sense that he worked on the script for a decade, though. It's like, of course, of course it did. And I wonder about the 3-hour version because I would have wanted to see more of the whole sequence on the ship.
Well, you could get the whole voyage of the Demeter. Yeah. Like, I mean, I was sort of like, oh man, I was looking forward to see it. And like what you see is cool, but it's almost like, oh, just a glimpse of it.
Yeah. And so there's a 3-hour version that he's releasing with when the DVD comes out, and I'm not gonna probably watch the entire 3 hour, but like I would want to go to that and see if the voyage of the Demeter part is part of that.
You'd have to like extraordinary rendition KT to have to watch that.
Actually, have you guys seen the actual movie, The Voyage of the Demeter? I heard it's quite good.
I've seen mixed stuff about it.
I'm curious, and I almost watched it during Vampire Month, but I was like, I want to watch a movie that isn't about vampires.
Touche.
I'm gonna watch Wall Street.
No, apparently the opposite of vampires is mailmen, by the way. But
really,
I did not watch The Postman. I don't know. If you look it up, that's what it says.
I mean, I guess because they're kind of giving. They're not really taking anything from you.
Yeah, they're giving you mail. Right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
They only do it during the day usually, unless it's like a night mailman. I guess. I don't
but
know. I got nothing.
Night mailman would be a great vampire movie.
Night mailman.
I have he comes up and he's like, you have postage that the mailman forgot to give you. Okay, that sounds like something that could happen. And then he's like, I must come in to give you your postage.
We will workshop this and many other ideas, as well as tell you about all that other stuff in the after party.
Yeah, in our after party, Count Orlok wins the Golden Globes? Question mark.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah. All right. See you guys over in the after party in about 10 or 15 minutes, depending on, how long it takes us to get set up and ready.